Vietnam War began November 1st, 1955, and ended with the fall of Saigon on April 30th, 1975. Nearly 3 million servicemen and women fought in a conflict that would take the lives of more than 58,000 Americans. Of those who served during the Vietnam War, 258 were awarded the Medal of Honor. More than 6 out of 10 award recipients made the ultimate sacrifice by giving their lives while performing courageous acts upon which they were later honored. The U.S. Postal Service will honor these brave Americans by dedicating the Vietnam War Medal of Honor Prestige Folio Forever stamps here in Washington, D.C. on Memorial Day 2015 at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial.
We are here to dedicate 3 commemorative stamps and to pay tribute to Medal of Honor recipients from the war in Vietnam. The Prestige Folio stamp sheets we're issuing today depicts 48 of more than 50 living Vietnam War recipients. The folio also includes a list of deceased Vietnam veterans who received the Medal of Honor. We also remember today the sacrifice and patriotism of all veterans, including 2.7 million Americans who served in Vietnam.
So what does this stamp mean to you? What should it mean?
Well, I'll tell you what, to me, the stamp will honor all of the veterans that have honorably served our country during the Vietnam era. And this is something that I would certainly like to see. It is not for the Medal of Honor recipients. The Medal of Honor recipients are we're just a small group that happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And we want to represent all of the military that has honorably served this great country and protects our way of life.
Great. Thank you very much, sir. What do you want these stamps to mean to America? What do you want these stamps to communicate?
Well, I hope it's a reminder when they look at it and they put it on there for just momentarily that they'll say, you know, that's Medal of Honor. That represents a lot of people and represents the military. And 2/3 of the people who received the Medal of Honor died in action. But we represent everybody who represents freedom. You know, we earned it. And I hope that stamp is just a little reminder that we live in a phenomenal country. Freedom is costly. And it's a great way. We're so proud to have that Medal of Honor, like all the wars have been. So thanks for doing that, Post Office.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Could you tell me what today means to you?
Why, it's the day that we think about the men and women who have served this nation, but we should think about that every day, not just today.
Okay.
I was in the Navy in 1960, and in 1968 I wanted to go close to the action over there, so I volunteered for touring country.
And what's the message?
Don't forget the people who are on the wall here, ever.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service. Would you mind
Thank you,
telling
ma'am.
me you're wearing the Medal of Honor? What act of bravery were you commended for this for?
That was for a rescue mission in April of 1968 with the 1st Cav Division in Yashao Valley. And we still have 3 of our members over there on the wall missing. And it was an interesting night. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to get everyone back. So that's about the sum of it. We're still working on the other part of it.
And what message would you like to send out to the public?
Enjoy your Memorial Day. Have good memories of those that we really honor. And thank a soldier for being able to enjoy it from now and forever, we hope. So.
There was a boy, he grew up in Minnesota, he went to war, and then he became a prisoner of war, and then he came home, he's got a lovely wife and a beautiful daughter and granddaughters. That's my story. I'm sticking with it. And what else did you want?
Tell me about this award.
I'm a little fluent, but anyway, yes. I'm a Medal of Honor recipient for some action in Vietnam and air-to-air stuff. Then I became a prisoner for 6 years. I learned with the TAP code that I'd been submitted for the Medal of Honor after a couple of years in prison. But I put it on and I think, man, I'm in the same outfit as Jimmy Doolittle and Joe Foss and people I know here, every Medal of Honor recipient will tell you, we all know people as or more deserving than we, truly. We wear this very humbly because there was no eyewitnesses, everybody got killed. For whatever reason, very deserving people didn't get it, so we represent them. Really, we represent everybody who, if you put a little bit more into our country than you take out, no matter what your job, will last a long time.
And what message would you like to send to the public?
To the public, just that don't forget Memorial Day. Don't forget those who less than 0.5% now are protecting us. And everybody's got a family or a relative or history that gave it all in for their country. But it's so easy to forget Memorial Day is about memories of our freedom of our country. And hamburgers are good. I like that too. But you know, just remember the people who gave their all.
And how were you released from prison?
The B-52s came over Hanoi. The 18th of December 1972, the happiest night of my prison life. And then the next night, skip Christmas, and they came till the 28th, and then they got real serious about negotiating, and that forced them to release. Then all prisoners of all countries were released in a short period after that. So it was force. They understood that well.
I was involved with quite a few POWs because I went to the Air Force Academy, and subsequently I spent 27 months in Vietnam. And along the way, I became the intelligence officer for Colonel Bud Day, who has passed away since the war, but was a recipient of the Medal of Honor. And they all knew that they were going to get released because they heard the sound of the bombs falling from the B-52. A B-52 carries 105 bombs. And they knew that there was a lot of sequence of these bombs falling, and they knew that something serious was really being done. And within 13 days, they were released. And they all loved Richard Nixon because he said he would bomb the North and get the men out, and he did. And they were all brought home together in I believe it was early April '73. I can't remember offhand. Anyway, I'm proud to say anything about these guys. They're all very dear to me.
Living footnote to history, the president of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. It's very, very nice to once again be here with all of you magnificent people. And we have an extremely interesting program today, if not somewhat historic, because of the recipients of the Medal of Honor. If you ever meet a Medal of Honor recipient, you don't say to him, you won the Medal of Honor. No, you actually received the Medal of Honor. It's not something you actually win. So a little footnote to history. This, by the way, as I think probably everyone knows, is actually Memorial Day. Memorial Day, by the way, evolved after the American Civil War. It was called Decoration Day, and that was the time when people, particularly the mothers and family members and fellow veterans, would decorate the graves of the fallen soldiers in that terrible conflict. And slowly but surely, someone finally had the idea to make this day encompass all of the nation's wars and those who gave their lives for a really great country. So we host this ceremony every year with the National Park Service, and we appreciate all they do. I also want to thank these incredible volunteers, and we couldn't do what we do without them. They're all wearing their little yellow hats. It's worth noting that this memorial had a great deal of controversy, and somebody told me in the middle of it all that this would one day be just nothing. The controversy would be a footnote to history, and indeed it was. Now this is millions of people come here year after year. We've tried to do a count, which is a little tough, but 100 million people or more, in all probability, have been here. Every year we get 4 million. Back in the early 80s, it was more like 2.5 million, but you sort of put it all together, and we've got 100 million visitors here, and that's 1 out of every 3 people in the United States. So it's a magnificent thing.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jim Knotts. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund, and I'll be your Master of Ceremonies for today. Folks look at me and say, boy, you look awfully young to have served in Vietnam. And while the gray hair makes it look like I am of the same era as these distinguished gentlemen and our Vietnam veterans here, I'm actually a veteran of the first Persian Gulf War. And the reason that I sought out this position with the Vietnam, thank you. The reason I sought out this position with the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund is because when I went to war for our nation, I received the support and the respect that our troops deserve. And I knew, like everyone knows who has worn the nation's uniform, that we owe a debt to those who came before us, and we have a responsibility to those who come after. And I know that I received the respect and the support that I needed when I went into harm's way because it was our Vietnam veterans who made a commitment that we will never, ever send a generation of Americans into harm's way without that support and respect.
This memorial is one of more than 400 sites that the National Park Service oversees, including 85 national battlefields, military parks, and monuments to those who defended our country. This wall, unique among the 407 sites that the National Park Service oversees, is a living, interactive memorial. Millions of visitors each year honor their friends, relatives, and even those they never met by leaving flowers, ribbons, medals, handwritten notes, and prayers, and other remembrances here at the base of the wall. The price of freedom displayed not only in the names etched in the black stone of this memorial, but also in the mementos left, and in the responses of the visitors, which show how a nation's grief has been etched on our hearts of the American people. It is a place of healing where visitors find peace and comfort. Today, on Memorial Day, we pause to remember those who, in the words of Abraham Lincoln, gave the last full measure of devotion to their country. Etched on this wall are the names of 58,307 men and women who paid the ultimate price so that we could each know peace and freedom. Each and every one of them is a hero.
We remember, too, the thousands of veterans who have died after the end of the war as a result of their service. War for the warrior does not end the day he or she comes home. Soldiers don't always die on the battlefield. They die years later from complications of an infectious wound, amputations that won't heal, stress-related heart attacks, mustard gas, Agent Orange, radiation exposure, and they die of suicide. As Minnesota Vietnam veteran Jerry Hansen wrote about his buddy Earl. Earl killed 4 Viet Cong at Tui Wa on August 16, 1966. Earl killed a 14-point buck near Duluth on October 22, 1971. Earl killed himself at home on April 7, 1979. Let us not deny the fact that we lose our fellow veterans to their own hands when life at home becomes so difficult, more difficult than the war itself. We remember them, and we remember their parents and their loved ones, their families, who suffered the loss, too, of this ultimate death and sacrifice. Sometimes following our service to country, we are questioned. What did we do in Vietnam? Why did we go to Vietnam? Years after the Vietnam War, one Navy nurse veteran said it best, quote, "If the American people could only have experienced what it felt like to be present when young men were dying, they would not have to ask me, should you have gone to Vietnam? To be the last human being to whisper some words of comfort into the ear, the last one to touch their cold hand or wipe their forehead was a privilege afforded to me," end of quote. As we honor the memory of our fallen men and women of the armed forces and those who served as civilians supporting the armed forces, we are thankful for the blessed time they had with us, and we are remorseful for the sacrifices they made for us. We owe them our commitment to work toward peace, and we owe them appreciation for the freedom and liberty their blood was shed for. We remember those people whose names we do not know, those who died in times and places we have not heard of and are buried around the world. We remember our POWs and MIAs, and we remember all those lives who were lost on September 11th and following September 11th. May our active duty troops around the world be kept safe from harm. May those who continue to suffer from the wounds of war find peace and healing. May those of us who are privileged to live sustain the American spirit through our promise to never forget and to not allow one single American to ever forget those we saw suffer and die and those thousands before us.
I would like to recognize recipients who are with us today. I invite each to stand or wave as I call out their names. Bernie G. Atkins. Sergeant Atkins, a Green Beret, risked enemy fire to man a mortar position and later rescued several of his comrades. Gary Burnell Bykirk. Sergeant Bykirk, also a Green Beret, faced withering enemy fire to provide relief to wounded comrades. Patrick Henry Brady. In a single day, Army Major Brady flew 3 helicopters, braved enemy fire, and evacuated 51 wounded men. Jack Howard Jacobs. While under enemy fire, Army Lieutenant Jacobs rescued a U.S. military advisor and 13 Allied soldiers. Thomas Gunning Kelly. Navy Lieutenant Kelly, the commander of 8 rivercraft, overcame serious wounds to successfully lead his command to safety. James Michael Sprayberry. Army Lieutenant Sprayberry used hand grenades to destroy a string of enemy bunkers that had pinned down his unit. Kenneth Edward Stumpf. Army Specialist Stumpf rescued 3 wounded comrades and then destroyed a series of enemy bunkers. Brian Mills Thacker. During an enemy attack on his fire base, Army Lieutenant Thacker organized a tactical retreat, stayed behind to order artillery fire on his position, and then successfully eluded the enemy for 8 days. Leo Keith Thorsness. Air Force Major Thorsness piloted his F-105 fighter bomber through surface-to-air missile attacks and engaged the enemy MiG fighters while running low on fuel to protect 2 comrades parachuting to safety after their aircraft had been shot down. He was later shot down over North Vietnam and taken prisoner, enduring 6 years of captivity and torture. Gary George Wetzel. Army Specialist Wetzel, a helicopter door gunner, defended his downed craft and helped save injured comrades despite sustaining severe wounds from enemy rocket fire. Thank you all for your service, your valor, and your loyalty.
These people whose names are on the wall behind are my brothers and sisters. They are your brothers and sisters. They are the brothers and sisters of all 320 million people for all of us who are lucky enough to call the United States home. Almost 200 years ago, a British philosopher named John Stuart Mill said, "War is a terrible thing, but it's not the worst of things. A man for whom nothing is more important than his personal safety is a miserable creature who is made free and kept free by the exertions of better men than he." We are all in debt to these people. They are, in our minds, forever young. And even though they died when they were young, they made a larger contribution to our liberty, greater than all of the captains of industry, all of the bureaucrats, and certainly all of the politicians. I didn't mean to be political, but there you go. I'm frequently asked, what do I think about on Memorial Day? Same as I do every day, the sacrifice of young people so that we can be free. It is our mission to make sure that we don't squander their sacrifice, but most of all, that we do not ever forget. Thank you.
I was served on an A team, Special Forces A team in Vietnam. We were located in the jungles on the Laotian border, and our camp came under siege, and we were surrounded for 30 days. There were about 10,000 of the North Vietnamese that were trying to overrun our camp. And during that time, I was shot 3 times and just kept on doing what I was trained to do. Until I collapsed, and then I was medevaced out. But most of the recipients, if you were to ask them what they did, they would say, I just did what I was trained to do. I did what the guy next to me would have done. And in many cases, the guy next to me did do.
How did you find the strength and courage within yourself?
Thank you. Love is a strong emotion. And it's something that if you have it in your life, it can give you a lot of strength. It can give you a lot of determination, the will to keep on going when others might want to quit. And if there was anything that existed between myself and those mountain yards that I lived with in the jungles, it was love. And that's what kept me going, was my love for them.
But what was it like coming home? Coming home to maybe a very hostile
Yeah.
community.
Coming home was not all that much fun. I still carry the wars. Yep, right there.
Okay, and then this one here, you sound on that one too.
I still carry the physical wounds of the war, and that was a challenge. But what really almost destroyed me was the emotional wounds of coming home. I was spit on. I was called names. I quit college a second time, and because of that, I took off, and because I was afraid of what I would do to those guys, I just said, I'm out of here. I left the college campus, I got in my van, and I drove to northern New Hampshire, and I lived in a cave for 2 years because I needed the time, I needed the space to try to figure out what had happened to me in Vietnam. I needed the time and space to figure out how to deal with all the feelings that I couldn't control. And I was afraid to leave the cave because of what I might do to people. And I was afraid to leave the cave because from what the people had told me, they thought I was a baby killer. They thought I was just a terrible person. And I didn't want to hear that anymore. So because I was afraid, and because of the guilt that I felt, and because of my inability to control what I was feeling, I chose to stay in a cave for 2 years.
But you resolved it, and how did you resolve it, and then what did you do?
Well, I resolved it, I guess, by the Medal of Honor helped resolve that. I was in the cave when I was told that I was going to be awarded the Medal of Honor. And I had just spent...
How did they find you?
They got a hold of my parent, my mother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then they just started searching around, and I was told that I needed to be down at a local inn.
I think
at
this one, but I want you to sign on that sheet there too.
Okay. I had to be down at a local inn at 6 o'clock because there was going to be a phone call for me, and I went down there, and that's the phone call that I got that was from Washington.
I just got one.
And they said I was going to be awarded the Medal of Honor. As soon as I heard that, I started feeling all those things again. I think that much of the reception that we're receiving now, to me, it's just another indication that perhaps our country is learning, our country is healing, our country is learning how to face what war does with people, and learning how to receive those who have to fight the war. No one wants peace more than those who have to fight war. And in order for us to deal with what war does to us, we need to be able to come home to a country that, though they may not understand, that they can at least listen. They can spend time, they can care. And that's what those of us who fight the war, that's what we need in order to help us resolve all the things that war does to us.
Customers have until July 24th, 2015 to obtain the first day of issue postmarks by mail. Affix the stamps to envelopes of your choice, address the envelopes to yourself or others, and place them in a larger envelope addressed to Medal of Honor Vietnam War Stamps, Special Events, P.O. Box 92282, Washington, D.C. 20090-2282. After applying the first day of issue postmark, the Postal Service will return the envelopes through the mail. There is no charge for the postmark up to a quantity of 50. For more than 50, customers are charged 5 cents each. All orders must be postmarked by July 24th, 2015. And I'm Kristal Hart, and I'd like to thank all the men and women who have served our country as well as those who are serving. We're here in Washington, D.C. this Memorial Day 2015. We're at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, where this wonderful stamp with the Vietnam Veterans Medal of Honor has just been released. So go to your post office, pick one up. It's some great history. And I hope you've enjoyed the show, and thanks for watching.